Hello everyone and welcome to episode 5 of the Skype show. Today I'm joined by special guest Adam Jacobs, an Office Servers and Services MVP from Polycom, and Martin Bone. Welcome everyone. Today's this episode I was going to announce something quite big, and we're pleased to announce that we have now secured sponsorship with Anywhere 365, the Skype for Business contact center solution. We're extremely honoured and proud to have such a prestigious sponsorship and really happy that Anywhere 365 is on board with us. So what will the benefit of the sponsorship bring us? We're currently working on a new logo design and PowerPoint template on the content for our content, and which some of you may realise that if you were been a previous viewer, audience member, then you'll notice that our PowerPoint deck style has changed, and we're trying it on this show. We're also working on a new website design and some new logos, and hopefully in the next few weeks it'll look more professional and fresh. So we're really looking forward to the next few weeks. I promised another announcement on Twitter, and this will come from Adam later in his presentation, where you'll be feasting your eyes on something new from Polycom. That's up till now, it's under NDA. So on to the show. So today's agenda, I'll be talking you through my personal experience when performing a hybrid in reverse. Adam will be talking about Polycom's investment in Rigel, Viz, and some other cool stuff that's coming up soon. And Martin will be talking to us about Skype for Business Room systems later, which will go very nicely with Adam's session. As always, questions and answers are at the end via Yammer or using the hashtag Skype4BShow on Twitter. Please reach out to us any time during the show, and we'll try to answer your questions that you may have later. So, session 1, reverse hybrid. What do I mean when I say reverse hybrid? This is when you've deployed a Skype for Business online in Office 365 first, before having any on-premise deployment of Skype for Business or Link. You have all your users homed in the cloud and now want to build some on-premise infrastructure to meet your business requirements. In order to allow users features and to operate properly in both environments, hybrid must obviously be configured. Now, the normal process is that usually users have some on-premise functionality, and the business wants to move to the cloud to maximize the investments and scale, and this would require hybrid connection. But here we're doing this in reverse. So why do we need to consider this scenario? So perhaps the customer or business has deployed a small-scale pilot proof of concept in Skype for Business Online, and after the pilot, the company wants to roll it out company-wide, but want to introduce more complicated capabilities, such as response groups for a number of users, and perhaps there are other considerations to integrate with third-party applications, such as contact centers, CRMs, analog systems, lists, phones, pages, etc. So simply just perhaps some advanced requirements for important users, such as chief executives cannot be enabled in the cloud at this time, and say if they have special routing requirements, block numbers, user ethical wall type stuff, etc. So whatever the reason this is required, the process is not as simple as the Office blog makes it out to be, which we'll go into in a second. And that there are a number of challenges that you need to consider to make this work successfully and without major upsets. So if you think of Skype for Business online deployment in a split-brain DNS situation, you realize that all your service and simple URLs are pointing to Office 365. Introducing your on-premise pool of service and adding DNS records in for some services would cause impacts to client sign-in operation. So for instance, imagine you have your SIP internal TLS SRB record in advance, and this would cause client sign-in failures, and users would have to manipulate connection settings in the client to get the correct service. Then in Office 365, are the users enabled for Skype for Business Online cloud? Are they cloud identities, or are they synchronized identities from your AD using Active Directory Connect? If the latter, it makes the process a lot easier, and if the former, then you have some work to do to convert these accounts, cloud identity accounts, into synchronized accounts before you could begin anything. The biggest challenge by far is the deployment. It's absolutely critical to nail the installation and the configuration first time, including firewall rules and app statements, policies, etc. And you have to do all of this with next to no conclusive testing. So this method is not without its risks. So consider your user experience at all costs. The goal is to potentially move some users from the cloud to on-premise, and therefore efforts should be made to ensure the safety of their data at all times, such as custom contact groups, future meetings, etc. And if you disable the user in the cloud and enable them on-premise, for instance, they would lose both of these. So planning your deployment. So first, the most important factor here is the users in Office 365 have to be synchronized accounts from your on-premise AD. You cannot have hybrid without this. So if you currently have in-cloud identities, then these will need to be converted to synchronized. The reason for this is because the account in both Office 365 and on-premise must share the same object properties cross-forest. So this is done by using your on-premise user object GUID and mapping it to Office 365 as your immutable ID. This creating a partner relationship between the two accounts, and this has the benefit of ensuring that your user's identity on premises and on Office 365 is the same physical person and not two different individuals that share the same name. So when implementing hybrid, TechNet dictates that ADFS must be implemented and single sign-on must be enabled for hybrid. I have seen this work in traditional hybrid configurations with same sign-on, which is using password sync, and it's been working perfectly fine. However, when performing this in reverse, it's best to revert to the documentation and configure ADFS for single sign-on. If you don't, then I've experienced problems when trying to pull a user back for the first time and that you receive an error that purports to be an account mismatch error. When synchronizing your user accounts, you must use the UPN as your source anchor, and using other attributes like SMTP soft matching will cause you problems in moving accounts between systems later on. This involves you adding the correct UPN to your AD and then updating your synchronized accounts accordingly. Although this step isn't strictly mandatory in this order, I strongly recommend that you prepare your AD schema before performing your first synchronization. This avoids any possible problems with attributes not syncing between systems thereafter. Although all attributes should be synced as recommended practice, those of you performing specific attributes for synchronization will need the Skype for Business MSRTC SIP attributes to be synchronized to Office 365. Moving on to DNS. DNS is perhaps the second most critical configuration to get right. So there are going to be a number of DNS records that can't be changed until the very last minute in both your internal DNS and external DNS zones. Records cannot be changed until you have your front-end edge pull reverse proxy in place, fully configured for hybrid, and this includes your firewall rules and NATs and user activation. If you change these DNS records or simply add DNS records to your zones, you will introduce problems to all or some of your users due to DNS round robin or on-premise servers not understanding accounts that are in the cloud or even federated properly at the same time. You can, however, add pool names to internal DNS zones safely, as well as your meet and down and simple URLs and external web services, FQDN, because these aren't used in Skype for Business Online. If your Access Edge server FQDN is not going to be sip.domain.com, but something custom like accessedge.domain.com, then you can safely add this DNS record to your external DNS zone. And the same for your web conference and AV edge servers without impacting production. But what you cannot do is modify the link discover or SIP-A records, or those SRV records that for client sign-in or federation in any of your zones until you're ready in a position to do hybrid. Moving on to deployment. So as I've alluded to in the previous slides, in order to successfully perform this operation, we're going to need a complete deployment of on-premise server, including front-end edge pools, reverse proxies, certificates, etc., together with all the other intricacies of an on-premise deployment that goes with. So you're able to build the entire pools required out, and you can start the services without causing any problems to production at this point. So, however, you must not start to home users on the on-premise infrastructure until your hybrid is configured. The reason is down to clients sign-in and federation between Office 365 users and on-premise users, and in general, you'll get some weird and wonderful behavior. So moving on to your firewalls. So when you configure your external DNS for your Access Edge and simple URLs, you would have provisioned them with a public IP or IPs. If you're using NAT for your external Edge DMZ interface, then this is the time to configure your NAT statements also. Ensure that all the required ports are open in the correct direction to the correct IPs in the same manner as if you're performing a normal deployment, and this will not harm anything. So ensure that all your firewalls are not performing. Also ensure that all your firewalls are not performing any level of deep packet inspection or any application filtering for traffic coming in and out of the Edge servers. If these are enabled, then you will typically find problems with federation amongst other problems. Typically, you'll find that TLS can't be negotiated, and when you do a Wireshark capture, you'll see TCP resets before any TLS key exchange and handshake is attempted. If your firewall supports SIP ALG, then make sure this is disabled on your Edge interfaces, as Skype for Business handles this function of this through stun and turn and does not need any help. So testing, so Telnet is your friend. So now that you've configured all your firewall rules and you have your Edge servers and various proxies installed, it's time to check the connectivity at least a protocol level. There are a number of tests here you can perform, but you'll be unable to use the lazy man's approach of using testconnectivity.com, testconnectivity.microsoft.com as this time, because all your DNS records are pointing to Office 365, of course. So you have a number of tools that you can use. Personally, I use Telnet and Nmap to confirm ports and connections, and therefore you can use Telnet to connect to any TCP port on the Edge server. There is one note here in that you cannot connect to the AV interface on TCP at the 50K port range because, contrary to certain beliefs, the Edge server will not accept unauthenticated TCP connections to that interface, even though it's listening, and this is by design to prevent unauthorized access. You can also Telnet to ports using the UDP protocol. So UDP is a connectionless protocol that requires you to send some data for it to become active. So here you can test with Nmap port query to ascertain at a high level if these ports are correctly configured. If you have access to an external machine with the Skype for Business client installed, then you could enable a test user on the on-premise pool and test external sign-in using the external client's host file for DNS. However, you would not be able to test federation properly due to incorrect SRV records. But the ultimate goal here is to ensure that you've taken all the possible tests and steps to prove connectivity throughout your on-premise deployment before you attempt to create hybrid. So don't stop at internal checks. External checks. Make sure that your internal checks are complete, so your internal firewalls are configured and your servers are accepting Telnet connections. Perform tests against your deployment to make sure that it's healthy as possible before depending on it in production. So make sure all your network routes are in place, certificates, etc. One overlooked test is to check your certificates on all servers, but especially your Edge servers. So make sure you can download the certificate revocation list or CRL list from your public SSL provider on your Edge server, and also from your CRL point on your internal network. Ensure that all your intermediate certificates are installed in the correct intermediate trusted store on the local computer, and the correct root certificate is also installed in the trusted root store. Don't mix and match them, and you will receive problems. So avoid any duplicate root or intermediate certificates also in the same store. Even with different serial numbers, Skype for Business doesn't like them to be present, and it can cause certificates to become unassigned from Edge services. I've seen that happen. In order to check that your Edge server reverse proxy is sending the correct intermediate certificate along with its server certificate to the external request, then you can use the crypto report tool by Symantec to check the correct chain is being sent from the information sent by the server. I recommend this tool simply because it allows checking using IP address as well as FQDN. So some of the checks only require FQDN. So now that you've completed as much of the checking and double checking as you possibly can, it's time now to pre-configure hybrid. So for this, you run the hybrid PowerShell scripts, first converting Office 365 tenant to allow your shared SIP address space, and then configuring your hosting provider for Skype for Business Online in your on-premise deployment using the PowerShell commands in the slide here. The next step, and the most important step, is to enable your users for Skype for Business Online in your users on-premise server. So except with these, we're going to tell the on-premise deployment that these users are in Skype for Business Online. So how do we do that? So when we enable those users, instead of choosing which registrar pool the user is going to be homed on, we're setting the hosting provider FQDN to be Skype for Business Online. This configures the user's AD properties so that the on-premise server knows that the user is homed in the cloud, and therefore when sign-in requests and federation requests come in for this user, they're redirected and rerouted into Office 365. So once this is enabled, make sure you perform a full synchronization of AD Connect to make sure that all the changes have been replicated up into the cloud. Now you've configured hybrid and enabled your online users and proxied accounts on your on-premise server, performed all due diligence around your deployment, it's time to make the change that will ultimately be your success or failure. So now you must change the DNS records in both zones to point to on-premise servers. And this process can take up to 48 hours if you've done because of DNS replication around the world. And if you followed all the steps correctly, then no one will notice this change happen. If there is a problem, it may not become apparent straight away. It just depends on what problem there is. Once DNS is propagated and you've confirmed functionality for all users, you may want to move some of them users back from on-cloud to on-premise. And this can be done using the Skype for Business control panel or by using the PowerShell command in the slide. Please note when using the command, you will need to use your tenant migration override URL, which begins with admin and then followed by two letters or characters. For me, it's admin1e because I'm in EMEA. And for America, it could be 1A or 1N. I can't remember which one it is. But anyway, if you go to the if you log into your Skype for Business Online control panel, you'll be able to see which admin portal you're signed into, and then you copy that into the to the URL and the PowerShell command on the slide. So moving on to a few gotchas that I found along the way, some that I foresaw coming and some that I didn't. So a few gotchas. Make sure that your UPNs in your AD match your on-prem and in the cloud. Otherwise, if they don't match when you try and move the user back, it will fail. So also make sure that the UPN is a source anchor as well. You should be okay. So don't use SMTP address as a source anchor. And when you move the users back, you'll receive an error. So if you have problems with federation, then some moves will obviously fail. But another point on federation is that as well as when you have Skype for Business Online, have users in Skype for Business Online, and you communicate with a federated partner that is also in Skype for Business Online, then even though that's a different tenant, federation between these two users happen inside Office 365, it doesn't actually break out over SRV and hit your on-premise edge servers and reroute accordingly. It happens all within Office 365. So that can give you some false positives when you're attempting federation testing in the initial steps. Just be aware of that. So test federation between Office 365 source, Office 365 peer, and also Office 365 and on-premise Skype for Business user and vice versa, both in your same domain and your partner domains. So the other, when you move the users back from on cloud to on-premise, if they've got any future meetings, they're going to be scheduled to be in the cloud, so they're going to have the meet.online.link.com address space, simple URLs. So these will need to be updated in Outlook for each user. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the session. So I now have the pleasure of introducing our special guest, Adam Jacobs from Polycom, and welcome, Adam.
Over as presenter. One moment. So for those that don't know me and what I do, so I work for Polycom, as Mark mentioned, and my role at Polycom is really to work together with Microsoft on all the sort of the different products and solutions that we put together. So I'm going to go through some of the ones that we announced back at Enterprise Connect, and as Mark mentioned earlier, I've got some updates on the next release of the VVX firmware that's due shortly, and there should be some exciting new features in there that will make some of you guys happy. So let me move on to the next slide. Okay. So first of all, let's just go through some of the things we announced back at Enterprise Connect with Microsoft. So Microsoft announced a new type of room system. And in fact, one of the things that they talked to is their goal of catering for all different types of rooms that different enterprises might have, and there's some examples on the side there. And there's the Skype room system, which is in market today, which addresses some of those spaces, but there are some gaps. And with Skype room system today, there's this sort of very tight, prescriptive package where you have to have a certain type of touch screen and and camera and codec, and it all comes from one of the approved vendors. The idea with Rigel is that it's a lower price point and existing screens can be used. So the touch capability is within the Surface Pro device, which can be seen in the screen. Now, at Enterprise Connect, they referred to this sort of idea of a dock. It's one of the things that I've heard a lot of questions on is, so does that mean I can come into the room with my Surface Pro 4 and dock it into this docking station and just have this software presented to me somehow or magically? The answer is no. It's not really a dock per se. It's kind of like more, I've heard it being referred to as a smart dock, or it's more a fixed device in the room which is running specific software, and the software is similar to the software that runs on their Surface Hub platform. It's not the same, but it's similar. And obviously it's going to offer a lot of the functionality that you get on Surface Hub, and it means that you can connect it to your existing screens and some of the peripherals. If I might advance on the slide here, so some of the peripherals that we're looking to support, things like the Trio device as a USB speakerphone, the CX5100 device as well. And as announced at the conference, we're not the only vendor to be launching this product. Logitech are also launching a product, and their peripherals will also be supported with the Logitech version. I'm not aware of any other vendors at this point. Not to say that there won't be any, but that's kind of where we're at right now. The other things that we're looking at are different sort of packages. So, for example, what you can see there on the top right is a pre-packaged room system with screen and camera, and basically we're looking and working with partners on a pre-packaged solution, so everything can be delivered in an all-in-one SKU, so to speak. Moving on, so one of the other rooms that we're looking to address is some of the much larger rooms where there's installed audio, or a need for other capabilities. So we've had the Group Series product in market for considerable amount of time now. I think approaching a couple of years. But one of the things that we've heard back from our Microsoft customers is, well, the user interface is not the same as the Skype room system, and I get it, they both work together, but I don't want to have to train my users how to use one thing and not the other thing. So one of the things we've been working quite closely with Microsoft on is a new user interface for Group Series, in addition to supporting Skype for Business Online as well. And there's some other things that are coming along as a part of that to make sure that we've got all the supportability requirements underway. So, for example, we're going to support their latest authentication protocol, which is the ADAL or Modern Auth, the ability to migrate accounts from on-prem to online and back again, and have the Group Series sign in, sign out, and then quality of experience and log upload as well. So those
sorry.
Yeah.
Is that going to be all Group Series devices, or are there going to be some exclusions?
No, all of the existing devices will be supported, but there is one prerequisite. So you can see on the bottom right there, there's this touch controller. So to have this new experience, you need the what we call the Real Presence touch controller, because we basically designed it in the same way that it will interact just like a Skype room system will. So that is the prerequisite. But yeah, existing Group Series systems can be upgraded.
Have we had any questions or requests from people using HDX at all? It's quite old now, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it does come up, and it's unfortunate. The HDX platform is obviously significantly older than Group Series, and it went through all of the it went through Link 2010 support, Link 2013 support, and we actually went through their qualification program that Microsoft have got, and Group Series is doing that as well. But yeah, it's not been updated to support Skype for Business. So bear that in mind. If you do want Skype for Business support, you need the Group Series system. And the other thing which the HDX has never done is it's never done SVC. It's always operated with real-time video. Which obviously does work with Skype for Business, but yeah, Polycom decided to move our customers to Group Series for Skype for Business.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so on to the really cool stuff. So we've been working very hard behind the scenes on an updated version of our VVX software. And again, a lot of this is tied into the Microsoft qualification program. So right now, Microsoft refer to Skype for Business devices as supported for Skype for Business, or compatible, I think is the word they choose. But with version 4 or 4.5 of their third-party interoperability program requirements, there are additional things that vendors like Polycom and Yealink and audio codes have to do to become qualified for Skype for Business. So this is the first release that we'll have that will go through that certification. And some of the things that we had to do there, like log upload. I know there's quite a few people that have asked for QoE for some time now. It's up until this point, you've just had CDR information from a VVX phone, so that's good. I mean, you'll see things like round trip delay, jitter, lost packet, and MOS scores. So that's good news. We've also added web-based server discovery. So the link discover records that the Skype for Business clients use will also be leveraged by the phones. And another big thing that we've added is a new sign-in mechanism for our online customers. So if you look at that picture on the bottom right there, there's this new screen which basically shows you, different ways you can sign in on the phone. And one of the new ways is this web sign-in capability. And the idea there is that you are deploying the phones, and you don't have any software installed on any of the desktops. You don't have the Better Together over Ethernet client installed, but you want to sign the phones in easily online. Now, as we all know, there's no such thing as PIN authentication online. So the idea, putting in an extension and a PIN code is not an option. So what this will effectively deliver is it will give you a code, a unique code on the screen. It will prompt you to go to a website. You go to a website in your browser, you sign in with your Skype for Business credentials, and then you can put in this unique code, and it will sign the phone in for you. So it's not too dissimilar to the experience you get when you install one of these set-top boxes like a Roku or something, and you add a channel, and it asks you to authenticate your details. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I'm sure you've all noticed the colors and the icons look different. So in this release, we're working on delivering our phase 1 of a redesign. And the first part of that redesign is to change our iconography for Microsoft customers, our colors. And then in our next release, we're hoping to address some of the use cases and the sort of the workflow, and make it more similar to some of the Link Phone Edition handsets.
One of the questions that I had when I announced that you'd be making an announcement on the show, somebody quick back at me and said, "Is it going to be BTOE on Mac?" So I'm not a Mac user. I'm Mac phobic, to be honest. So are there any plans to do BTOE on a Mac, just for the benefit of anyone listening?
So the PC or Windows client has some hooks in it that Polycom can leverage for BTOE, and basically those aren't available on the Mac client. Now we are working with Microsoft on the new Mac client. I know they have an enormous backlog, and there's a whole load of things they're looking to add. I can't say yes or no whether it will be in the new client or not at this point, but we are working actively with them on this, and we know this is a request that comes up a lot, as does the request that comes up, which is to do BTOE without any third-party software as well. But no ETA yet on either of those, I'm afraid.
Okay, no problem. And will all the VVX have 5.5 at the same time, or will you be staggering it to the higher end phones first?
Yes, they'll all have 5.5. They won't all have the new user interface. So it's the 500 series and the 600 series that will get the new user interface. So some of the other things that are in there, that device lock. We had this like weird Polycom device lock that you could enable previously, but now when you sign in the phone, you get prompted to create a lock code, and basically the BTOE client locks and unlocks the phone so it behaves again like a Link Phone Edition device.
Okay.
BTOE, you can use an IP address now as well. We've had quite a lot of requests to do that. And then this last one's kind of a weird one. It's sort of part of the Microsoft requirements. It's a distribution list expansion. So if you have a distribution list added to your contact list in your Skype for Business client, and you go to the phone, you can basically expand the list and see all the members and their presence and contact them.
That's cool.
So lots in there, and that's coming fairly soon.
Okay, excellent. No, you're not going to give us a date.
I'd like to say it should be coming. It's weeks away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
One question from me, Adam. I guess with the previous series of the VVX, it's cloud PBX ready, I guess?
Yes. Yeah, and it's incident. So the 5.4 release was also Cloud PBX ready, but when we launched with Microsoft's Org ID authentication protocol. So what we've added as a part of this release is modern authentication as well. So it will support either types of authentication, and then of course Microsoft's goal is to basically move everyone over to modern auth and deprecate Org ID at some point.
Cool, that's great, thanks.
Okay, last slide from me, I think. So one of the other things we announced was a joint video interoperability service, and we're currently calling it Project Aqua. It doesn't have a name yet, but basically the idea here is that you can enable via some sort of add-on to an E3 or an E5 subscription video interoperability. So for those that are familiar with our Real Connect solution that we have in market today, which is very much an on-prem solution, there's also a solution from Meccano, which they call, I think, they call it Fusion. Was it Dual? No, sorry, Dual Home, and then Pexip have one called Fusion. So they all do very much the same sort of thing, but the idea is that this will be available without any customers having to deploy anything on-prem. They can basically just do video interop with their existing existing VTCs they've got within their organization. So and this is geared obviously more towards customers that have got Cisco VTCs or non-Polycom devices, because obviously the Polycom devices are more likely to work natively, especially given the Group Series roadmap. Yep.
Are there any plans to release a list of qualified devices? Because when Microsoft released Viz for on-premise, they said pretty much it'd be Cisco Tambergs and that's it. And when pressed on it, said, well, if it works like Cisco, then possibly. But are you going to be a bit more open with that? So expand it out into other VTC vendors as well, or is it just going to be a case of following the Microsoft way and say it's Cisco, and if anything else works, great. If not, nothing we could do. Sorry.
So we're still working through the details on that, but ultimately the list will be, if there is a list, it will be significantly bigger, because obviously we already do a lot of interoperability testing for our platform today. We have huge labs with all different types of vendors. So, and it's not surprising that this is something that as a video interop company, we do this a lot, and it's not easy. It's a lot of work. So, will there be a list? I'm sure there will be, but at the same time, I don't expect people to necessarily be unsupported if they have another standards-based, room system that uses, H.264 AVC to not work or not be supported. So, but we are working through the details on that.
Okay. Is there a limit to the amount of VTCs they can connect to the tenant, or is it just going to be a case of if you buy the bolt-on license to whatever E-plan, they'll get so many connections allowed? Is that how it's probably going to work?
Well, so it'll be licensed on a per user basis, but this is more on a per user of who's scheduling a call. So if you need, 100 users in your organization to be able to schedule calls that allow video interop, then that's 100 licenses. So it'll work that way, rather than limiting VTCs.
Any sort of special connectivity requirements for this service? Are they going to have to? Is it recommended for ExpressRoute, or can they run this over their normal internet connectivity?
Yeah, good question. So no, it will work without ExpressRoute, but ExpressRoute will be supported and probably be recommended It's basically the same kind of messaging that Microsoft gives for Cloud PBX. Really, you don't need ExpressRoute, but it's recommended.
Okay, cool.
I think that's my session over with. I'll hand back to you or to Martin.
Yeah. So session 3 is about Skype for Business room systems, which will follow on quite nicely from Adam's session, and that'll be presented by Martin Bone. Martin, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Adam. Cool. Hi, everyone. So my session is going to talk about room systems. So based on my experience I've had, which was Link room systems, they've now been rebranded to the Skype room systems. So I guess for people who don't know this, the Skype room systems have been out for quite some time. They look to aim to provide a consistent, easy to use, a rich Skype experience now across the meeting room devices that we've got, and really aimed at unlocking the value of meeting room collaboration with the use of content and video. The Skype room systems aren't a telepresence solution. That they are aimed at increasing productivity, collaboration, sharing of content, with that Skype UI look and feel, and also enabling the integrated manageability with Skype for Business, so administrators can administer these meeting room devices easily, use the same tools that you're using, all built in. So these are produced with partners, so Smart, Polycom, Sestron, that they make room systems. So they're predominantly what are known as the Skype room systems. And also one that is coming is the Microsoft Surface Hub. It's not strictly a Skype room system, but it is Skype for Business enabled. Again, looking at the use of collaboration in the meeting room space. So really breaking down the room systems, they're made of, there's an appliance PC that sits in the background. That can be, that is Windows 7 embedded on that appliance PC. It is an appliance PC, so it runs the software that is produced with the vendors. On there is Windows Firewall. It's locked down with App Locker. You can now enable antivirus with SCEP, but really you shouldn't go and modify and change that appliance PC. Cameras, depending on which solution that you choose, there's Smart have one built in. Polycom use the round table, and they're really at wide angle, HD, high definition video for the meeting rooms. Display wise, there's multiple sizes of displays, whether it's single or dual display, and they can come in multiple sizes as well, between the small systems, medium systems. Small ones are 55-inch screens, going up to the extra large ones that are 84-inch. And if you take an extra large dual one from Smart, that's 2 84-inch screens to put on your wall. So obviously the size and consideration for which meeting room device will fit your meeting room the best. The dual screen, very good for sharing video across displays, also sharing content on one side, on one screen, video on the other. Audio, there's wideband audio that we've got. Using the table console to drive that Skype experience, and it runs a Skype Room System Edition client, so it is customized client for the Skype Room systems. So I guess over the time from when they've been released, so I think 2013 was really when the Link Room systems were enabled, and they're developed and been worked on significantly. Some of the the major updates and key ones was the Room PC view option. I mean, so you can have a dedicated Room PC, and turn that on and off as you need to from the console. So I think that was a much needed experience. The where is my join button feature. So when scheduling meetings, you can schedule meetings through Outlook, do the normal schedule, either a link or Skype meeting, invite the room, and that will display on the calendar of the room. Now you will find that they need to be link or Skype meetings for you able to join that. If they weren't, you weren't able to join those, but now you can, and you can schedule the meetings based off the people that were invited into that non-Skype meeting. Management and manageability has enhanced through there was a release of an administrative portal that can be deployed. We'll touch on some of these in a bit more detail. The use of System Center Operations Manager and SCOM, so you can now have the link room system management pack to get more detailed alerting and events from the rooms. Antivirus was something that has been, I think, requested. That now can be done through System Center Endpoint Protection through SCEP, but there is some restrictions around that, but we'll go in a bit more detail later. There's been some additional screen and camera options that came with the Skype for Business update, which I think will be made use of from the various vendors. I guess the big one that came was the rebranding from Link Room Systems to Skype Room Systems. So that was a branding change. It rebrands from the Link Room Systems to the use of the Skype for Business logos, colours, icons. So those people out there, if you've got Link Room Systems, the November 2015 update brought that rebranding to Skype. So if looking to move your systems or move from Link to Skype, obviously just take note of the change of the interface change there. Most recent release and update was April, that should be 2016, typo there, but that's added a new front of room touch administrator setting, so now you can allow the use of non-touch front of room displays on Skype room systems, although it is recommended if you do have touch displays not to enable that. So they're continually being developed in terms of the Skype room systems. So from my experience and deployment considerations, it was key to look at the design and planning. Deploying the room systems isn't just bolting on some devices in the meeting rooms. Getting the right people involved is critical with any Link or Skype for Business deployment, and I think room systems rely on that as well. That there's considerations interactive directory. If you're going to look at domain joining the room system, the appliance PC, we need to look at the user account, that there's Skype for Business enabling that account, what policies we have, managing the updates for the rooms. That was challenging at part with the smart room system deployment that I was involved in. We'll go into those bits a bit more detail. Monitoring, how do we monitor these rooms? Network and network impact of bringing in these room system devices which are capable and designed for high definition video. What's the impact on the network? Exchange, which version of Exchange? Mailbox settings, options that we need to do for the rooms. Licensing, how are we going to license it by KMS or Mac? Whether we've got enterprise voice, PSTN access, whether we need that. And physical installs of the room systems, due to their size, are a pretty big job. Not a one-man job to bolt on the 84-inch screen onto the wall and get the correct cabling correctly. So, choosing the right, whether it's a third party to look at to do that or help you out, getting the right installation is key. So I guess looking at some of the prerequisites, we need a Link Server 2013 or Skype for Business deployment, whether that's on-premise or online is supported. Link Server 2010 is compatible. Unfortunately, though, there are some limited functionalities. The room systems are designed for Link Server 2013 and above. You can't join private meetings. There's none of the 2013 video features in terms of multi-view, video lock and spotlight, the use of 1080p. There's no auto mute for other Link and Skype for Business clients if a room system is discovered. If there's limitations on desktop sharing performance. Also DNS, Link Discover must point to a Link 2013 or Skype for Business pool. Just manually configure the Skype room system to point to a Link Server 2013 Skype for Business pool or online. And the Skype room system must be homed on a Link Server 2013. So if you do have a Link Server 2010 environment, consider that move up to whether it's Skype for Business Online or Link Server 2013 or Skype for Business. Touched on AD earlier. We need to look at user accounts. Make sure they're enabled for Skype for Business. The AD computer account needs to be either domain joined or work group, and there's some considerations around that. And the Exchange room based mailbox as well, and the options there. So the considerations around domain joining or work group. We can domain join the appliance PC. That gives us ease of administration. Automatically deploys root certificates, which is always handy. It gives us domain-based authentication, security, domain-based NTP for time. We can deploy QoS with group policies. It's recommended that the Skype room system or LRS has the computer and user accounts are in a dedicated OU. Ideally block inheritance and group policies that can affect the operation, for example, power management, timeout, lockouts. Block the SCCM or disable SCCM client from deploying on these systems. It's not supported to have SCCM client on there to roll out software. When thinking about work groups, it can be deployed in a work group, can be off the domain. It does remove issues around group policies that may be there when enabling and troubleshooting. It may speed up boot up time and deployment that we haven't got to run group policies. But it's important to understand that and to look at that. Managing the updates. So updates for the room systems, the two options really around, if your room system is allowed internet access, it can go through a proxy server. We can download them straight from the internet. Or if we need, or we don't have internet access, we want to manage our updates internally, we can deploy an internal update server. So that internal update server, it requires a server being deployed on the internal network. The updates must be downloaded from the OEM. For example, Smart allow the full download of their updates. We need to copy that to the server. That server runs IIS. And all the rooms must be configured to point to that update directory for updates. So that gives us total control, but also extra administration that we need to look at. The updates from the admin interface, they're split between the Microsoft updates, there's OEM updates from Smart, Polycom, Cestron for their devices, and that's all for the appliance. There is some particularly around the Smart documentation regarding WUS. So WUS can be used, but only for the SCEP definitions. That was one of the challenges in understanding that. I think the documentation wasn't quite all there. It kind of misleads to the fact that you can use a WUS server to deploy internal updates, but it's only for SCEP definitions. When we look at monitoring, touched on SCOM, so that there is a link room system management pack. We can look at getting alerts, bringing that into SCOM. So not only managing the server environment, but managing the rooms as well. Antivirus support for SCEP, so the definition updates deployed online or via WUS. You can't do that via an internal update server, it has to be WUS. So doing that internally, you can end up having two roles, whether it's the same server or separate. It requires the April 2015 update for that SCEP support, and it is only SCEP antivirus. The admin portal, so that was an update that was released. So the admin portal, we can look at information regarding the rooms, look at the health, provide remote administration, all via a web interface. We can delegate that to users that have full admin rights, support, or help desks that may just have view access. It's deployed on the front end server role. It is an on-premise deployment only. So online, there isn't an admin portal for this. Do require the July 2013 server update on Link Server 2013. And there is some prerequisites for ASP.NET MVC4. There is some user accounts that need to be run, Skype for Business enabled. So, and there is some configuration of config files that need to be done to get that admin portal to work, to query the rooms. That is documented. So that's all good. There are separate admin portal downloads though for Link Server and Skype for Business, and also if you're doing in-place upgrades from Link Server 2013, it is a note to remove the admin portal before in-place upgrading. So that's just a note there as well. Touching on the network, so network planning early is critical. Looking at the network, planning the bandwidth, there is some tools out there that, there are network assessments that partners do to analyze the network. There is the bandwidth calculator. When I was using the link bandwidth calculator for planning of the room systems that I was deploying, unfortunately, the bandwidth calculator didn't include link room systems, so I had to do a lot of that manually. There is a Skype for Business bandwidth tool. I can't remember off the top of my head whether they are included now, but there are multiple factors that can impact on bandwidth usage. The Skype room system client does have differences to the desktop client. In audio, we use G722 stereo, so that's only for the room systems. Peer-to-peer video calls start in full screen mode. We're using the maximum resolution that we can on these room systems. Unlike video on clients when we're just starting in thumbnails perhaps and then expanding out. The consideration for dual screens, they can have high resolutions, video tiles distributed across different screens. The Skype room systems, they're dedicated appliances, PCs, cameras, optimized for high definition video. We're not using the PC mic and speakers and the video integrated in your Surface or in your laptops. They are designed for video, and video does take considerably more bandwidth than audio. And yeah, hardware supports maximum encoding, decoding of 1080p video. So networking impact to the network. Need to plan. How are the room systems going to be used? Where do you just deploy the front end port if it's an on-premise deployment? Because all the video is going to be coming into the AV MCU. How can we look at the network controlling that? We can look at highly recommended quality of service, DSCP tagging through group policy if it's domain join or local policy for work groups. And call it mission control is another method that obviously we can look at to control the use of video, impact to the network on video. But network planning is key, and doing that early, preferably before you're deploying, ensure you've got the bandwidth, ensure you understand the impact to the network of deploying those devices. When we look at Exchange, similar to how Link Skype for Business works, there's a requirement. The room system is a user, dedicated user that has an AD account, and mailbox. It's a room-based mailbox. Supported versions in the latest guide, November 2015, I think, is Exchange 2010 onwards. There's mailbox considerations around, Exchange Web Services is required for the calendar. You need auto-discover. There's considerations around private meetings, open meetings, forward requests to delegates. Is anybody going to be looking after that room and needs to approve? Do you display subjects to the meetings? So there's considerations in Exchange as well. If we look at some other considerations, I recommend separate conferencing policy for rooms. We can keep them completely separate to the users. We can manage and use the settings in there to limit video, maximum resolution sizes. PowerPoint, we require Office web apps, same as Link Server 2013. One point on PowerPoint or Office web apps, ensure the certificate for Office web apps has a HTTP path included in the CRL. Remotely managing the room for deployment, remote desktops not supported on these appliance PCs. It's verified with Smart. We can enable web access with Intel AMT, and that can give us the ability to restart, shut down, start in BIOS mode. And Smart do offer some third-party tools with the use of Intel AMT, Daneware, VNC Viewer Plus, how you can remote control those rooms and see what's going on in the rooms with the users. And that's it. That's all for me from that slot. So I'll hand over back to Mark.
Thanks very much, Martin. And the slides have gone back to the start. So session 4 is questions and answers. But before we go into that, just want to thank you all for joining. And our next show will be the 6th of June, 7 p.m. British Summer Time. Our special guest on the show will be Alex Lewis from Event Zero. He's also MVP as well. And we'll also have Sonos coming on to do a vendor presentation, and hopefully I'm going to get them to do perhaps the upcoming CCE embedded device, but still talking to them about that right now. So session 4, question and answer. So obviously you can use the Yammer feed on the right of your screen to ask any questions to any of us. Tweet us using hashtag Skype4BShow or instant message myself, Mark, at theskypeshow.com for any questions that you want to ask. We'll be around for about 10 minutes to answer those. So I guess, Adam, before somebody else beats me to this, obviously there's a massive announcement made a couple of weeks ago about Polycom joining forces with Mitel, or Mitel joining forces with Polycom, whichever way you want to look at it. So what are your thoughts, and how do you see the future progressing in partnership?
Well, I guess officially it's not a done deal until it's a done deal, but yeah, it's highly likely it's going to go through, I suspect. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I know it's caught a lot of people off guard, and it's interesting because Polycom, today are, we don't have like a call control platform that we are responsible for. Everything we do is integrating with other people's call control, and obviously Microsoft are a primary example of that. What I will say is that we absolutely cannot, we cannot afford to stop our Microsoft business. It's incredibly important to us, and right now the strategy, or the joint strategy between Mitel and Polycom, is to carry on doing what we're doing, run Polycom as an independent unit, retain the brand, and continue doing what we're doing with Microsoft. So all the announcements that were Enterprise Connect, or that I went through today, they're still carrying on. There's no change, and I don't see any of those things changing, at all. Yeah. So we're carrying on business as usual. Whether that will open up new opportunities between Mitel and Microsoft, or Polycom and Microsoft, we'll have to see. Time will tell. But it's business as usual for now.
Cool. Good news. So another thing, on when you were presenting the Rigel slide, I didn't ask you at the time, but obviously there are two vendors. There's yourselves, and there's going to be Logitech as well. Yep. And you mentioned that it's going to be a Surface Pro 4 that's going to be loaded with almost a piece of software derived from Surface Hub. So yep. That says to me that the hardware's pretty much the same between both vendors in terms of the Surface Pro 4 and the software. So what would make people choose Polycom over Logitech, or Logitech over Polycom in that situation?
Yeah. How do we differentiate?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is not new. This is this is the same with any Microsoft reference design product. We had this with the Link Phone Edition phones. You know, if I buy a phone from Polycom or I buy it from HP, you know, what's the difference? And you know, there's some look and feel. You know, same thing can be said for the Rigel devices. You know, our dock, our smart dock will you know, almost definitely look different to Logitech's. But will it, you know, technically function the same way? Probably. You know, we'll have to see. Peripherals that will come with the Polycom one are obviously going to be Polycom peripherals.
Yep.
You know, we're looking very much at Trio being a you know, key speaker and you know, a speakerphone device that you pair with the Rigel system. And then we're looking at camera options as well. So you know, it's kind of similar to, you know, Skype Room System again, and any of the other sort of Microsoft Reference Design products.
Yeah, cool. So you mentioned as well that you're going to support or bring in support for the CX5100 into that Polycom smart dock system. So are you any plans to do anything with the 5500, or is that just going to stay silent on that?
Well, the 5500, you know, it's going through the same update cycles as the 5100. It's just that the 5500 has its own, you know, control panel attached to it. So the reason why we don't qualify, you know, officially those devices with any of these room systems is because it just becomes very confusing to have two controllers in a conference room, you know, one being on the CX5500 and then the other one being on Rigel or Skype Room System. So technically, you know, it'll work, but it's just not, you know, it's not something we recommend or that we directly support. So I'd recommend you know, if you've already got one and you want to pair it, then that's probably fine. But bear in mind that you're in a sort of grey area as far as supportability is concerned.
No worries. And you mentioned obviously the trios are relatively new as well, and we're not really talking much about them. We just mentioned them. So the trio is a speakerphone, spiderphone type device with a hub and a camera, and that will allow you to basically use it as a mini room system in a weird video conference room. You know, it's just I guess it's the evolution of the RT100 that never came about. But can you purchase the speakerphone separately, or do you have to buy the whole set for it all to work?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a modular device, so I can buy it just as a, you know, just as a Polycom conference phone. And you know, just as a conference phone alone, it's gone through a lot of upgrades to the speakers, to the mics. You know, and obviously it's the first conference phone that we have. I'm looking over at one right now. It's the first conference phone we've had which is running the same UCS software as our VVX phones as well. And there are some interesting things that we're planning on doing there as well around user interface for Microsoft customers as well. And again, some stuff we're looking to do when you pair it with a Surface Hub also.
Cool. And so anybody who has CX3000, they should be looking to upgrade them to this. That would be the direct.
Yeah, absolutely, so, definitely.
I read somewhere before as well that the Trio is wireless as well. Is that right?
Yes. So it has Bluetooth built in. And it also has there is some wireless functionality a lot. So there's basically the way we built the hardware is we put as much capability into the hardware as possible, and we're looking at adding more and more features over time. So you know, we want to do things like Miracast, for example, and you know, there's a whole list of things that we want to add. So the hardware has got everything in there that we need to, you know, add stuff over time. And it even has this interesting wireless pairing protocol. So if you do use it as a room system, and you have the Visual Plus or the AV pod, as we call it, attached to a screen, there's this network pairing that takes place. So you don't actually have to have a physical connection between the screen and the Trio device.
Cool.
And just for anybody who doesn't really understand what the technical aspects of this, but from a vendor's perspective, what's the biggest advantage to the business for a business to buy a Trio device as opposed to, let's say, spending the extra money and getting a group series or a room system, a dedicated room system?
That's a good question, and it's probably one that a Polycom sales guy could answer more eloquently than I could. I'm almost certainly there's going to be a price difference, although the price difference is, coming down. It's if you have a desire for you've got a big conference room, you need eagle eye cameras, you need structured audio, integrated audio, you need you've got a bigger conference room and you've got a bigger budget associated with that room, then a group series is obviously going to be the right choice. If you've got a smaller room, smaller budget, you don't need sophisticated cameras and whatnot, then the Trio could be a good fit. The video experience on Trio is also not the same as group series right now. So for example, if I take a group series and I join a Skype for Business conference, I'm going to get the multi-view video. I'm going to see it's going to do SVC. I'm going to see multiple people talking at any one time. The Trio today is switched video. So now that's not to say that it's not, we're not going to add multi-view. We might possibly, but that's what it is today. So it's not like for like.
Yeah.
I think in terms of some of the the Skype room systems, they're quite in some ways restrictive. That restricts the users to do certain things. I think the modular approach and doing focusing those small meeting rooms and things is really good. It sounds like really exciting devices really.
No. There's a question for Rahim. I think it's an ongoing conversation with you, Adam. He's saying, all right, maybe not. We probably want to.
He was asking about the user interface, wasn't he?
Yeah, and you replied that update to your previous answer for the group series, yes. For VVX, no.
Yeah. So originally I thought his question was related to group series. But basically on the VVX phones, when you run them in the Skype for Business mode, they will enforce the new colors and iconography. So that is a consideration when you upgrade to 5.5. On the group series, yes, you can control the user interface. So yeah, that was the question that Rahim was asking. Okay. And he's taking back his like. He doesn't like the fact that you can't turn the user interface on and off on VVX.
Oh, well. Okay. Have you got any questions, Martin? Or Adam?
I guess one for me with the VVX updates, is there any sort of enhancements to? I know we had reporting or provisioning and things around those devices. I know we had the enhancements for QoE.
Yeah, this comes up a lot, and we did do some stuff with Microsoft online. So we did there's some basic configuration parameters that you can set via PowerShell from the Skype for Business Online PowerShell portal. But you for on-prem customers or for any online customers for that matter that want very detailed or granular control around provisioning those phones. Today we recommend you either deploy a provisioning server, which it is complex. There's a lot to take in there, or we recommend going to a partner like Event Zero. because Event Zero and Polycom work very closely on a provisioning solution for our phones. So if you haven't seen that, it's worth checking it out.
Cool. Also, we've had reports that some audio video issues throughout the show. So when I play this back and edit it, we might have to rerun certain sections, but not for you, Adam. You're a busy guy, but just for anybody listening, if there are problems that we can't be understood, then we'll try and do something with the offline video in the next few days before uploading.
I think my network was all right. I'm probably nearer to where this is being served up from.
Yeah, I think it's my laptop or my 938 camera keeps on playing up. But I think that's what was going on. But we'll address that for the next show. So I don't think there's any more questions coming from anyone. So I'll take this opportunity to thank everybody for joining. Thank you, Adam, for spending your mid-morning, early afternoon with us. And thanks, Martin, for jumping in and delivering the content on room systems at short notice. And thank you, guys, and thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.